A cocky black belt mocked the silent janitor, thinking it would be an easy win. But when the old man stepped onto the mat, he revealed a hidden past, legendary skill, and a truth no one saw coming. Watch till the end and do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful true life stories. Yo, you ever held a pair of gloves, old man? The voice sliced through the air like a knife. Everyone in the dojo turned. Elijah, the black janitor, had just finished mopping near the back wall. He paused and looked up, calm, quiet, like he had heard this kind of thing 100 times. Standing across the mat was Kyle Morrison, 22, arrogant, blonde, a third-degree black belt, who always bragged that his dad funded the place. Kyle was smirking like he had already won. "Come on," he said, stretching his neck. "Just one round. You clean floors here, right? Might as well sweep the mat, too." People laughed, but not all of them. In the corner, Sensei Ito, the elderly owner of the dojo, watched silently. His eyes flickered, but he said nothing. Elijah set his mop back in the bucket. He stood straight, taller than most noticed. "He do not fight for sport," he said. His voice was deep, gentle, too calm. Kyle laughed louder. "You afraid of embarrassing yourself, man? This is friendly. You might learn something." The crowd chuckled. Students grabbed their phones. It was just a janitor, right? What could possibly happen? But what they did not know was that Elijah had not stepped into a ring in 19 years, and there was a reason he never did again. Kyle tossed a pair of gloves at him. They landed at his feet. "Be a sport. Let's see what those old bones can do." His tone dripped with mockery. For a moment, Elijah said nothing. He just looked down at the gloves. And then, very slowly, he bent down, picked them up, and walked onto the mat. The room went silent. The janitor was going to fight. Kyle grinned. Phones were already recording, and someone whispered, "This is going to be hilarious." But over by the door, a little boy tugged on his mother's sleeve. He pointed at Elijah and whispered, "Mom, that's the man from the old newspaper. The one—" His mother's hand quickly covered his mouth, because if the others knew the truth, this would not be fun at all. It would be history in the making. The bell rang. Kyle bounced on his feet like a showman, hands loose, confidence radiating, phones up, everyone watching. "Elijah?" He stood still, not in fear, not in confusion, but like a man who did not need to prove anything. Kyle threw the first punch, fast, sharp, but Elijah didn't flinch. He sidestepped, barely, like it was instinct. Kyle laughed, but his brows furrowed. He tried again, a jab, then a roundhouse. Missed. Again. The crowd giggled. Okay, old man slippery." Kyle smiled, but that smile was fading. The dojo lights seemed hotter now, the air heavier. Then it happened. Kyle lunged in with full speed, aiming for a takedown, but Elijah pivoted, gripped Kyle's arm, and in one impossibly fluid motion, flipped him clean over. Thud! The mat shook. Phones gasped. Someone dropped their soda. Kyle sat up, dazed. What the hell? But Elijah said nothing. He offered no smirk, no taunt, just stood there, waiting. Sensei Ito narrowed his eyes. He leaned forward on his cane, whispered to himself, "That throw, that was not learned in any beginner dojo." Kyle was furious now. He charged, sloppier this time, but Elijah ducked, slipped behind him, lightly tapped his ribs, then his shoulder, then his back. Not punches, Not hits, just touches. The dojo went eerily quiet because everyone realized Elijah was not just dodging, he was reading Kyle like a book. Kyle finally shouted in rage, "You think you're better than me? You're a janitor!" Silence. Elijah stepped closer, calm, unshaken. "I clean this floor because it needs to be cleaned. But you fight for applause. That is not martial arts." Gasps. Some students lowered their phones. Others glanced at Sensei Ito, who looked pale now. Kyle screamed in rage, threw a wild punch. This time, Elijah moved faster than anyone could track. In a blur, Kyle was on the mat again. Flat, arms pinned, chest heaving, trapped. And Elijah had not broken a sweat. The crowd couldn't process what they were seeing. And by the door, that same little boy from before whispered, "Mom, that was in the article. That exact move. It was him." The mother just nodded, her eyes glassy, because now it was undeniable. The black janitor was not who they thought he was. And Kyle had just awakened something that was supposed to stay buried. The dojo floor was dead silent. Kyle still lay on the mat, chest rising and falling, more from shock than pain. No one dared speak until a soft voice broke through. "Elijah Johnson?" It came from an old man in the back, visiting guest, bald, lean, military posture. He stepped forward, squinting. Elijah froze, then slowly nodded. The man's cane hit the floor. "I watched you in Okinawa, 1987. You were called the Shadow Crane." Students gasped. Kyle sat up, dazed, muttering, "Shadow who?" The man kept speaking. He was undefeated, disappeared after a tragedy, after his student. But Elijah raised his hand gently. Enough. Even Sensei Ito was visibly shaken, his face pale, his hands trembling. That cannot be. He was banished, exiled from competition. Now eyes were turning, whispers bloomed like wildfire. He is a master? Why is he sweeping floors? What did he do? And then the little boy stepped forward. He held out a faded newspaper clipping. "I found this in my granddad's garage," he said proudly. The photo showed a young Elijah in a black D, gold medal around his neck. Headline read, "Shadow Crane wins championship, then vanishes after refusing to bow to racist judge." The room shook with realization. One girl whispered, "He gave it all up for dignity." A slow tear rolled down Elijah's cheek, but he wiped it away before anyone could see. Kyle stood up, embarrassed, furious, still clinging to his pride. "So what? That was years ago. You were just a janitor now." But Sensei Ito finally stood, and what he said changed everything. "He trained me." The room gasped. I was 17, lost, angry. It was him who taught me honor, discipline. He saved my life. Kyle's mouth dropped open. Ito stepped forward, then bowed to Elijah, deeply. "I am sorry, Master. I should have never let them forget you." Now students began bowing too, one by one. Phones were lowered, hearts humbled. But Elijah stood motionless. Then he looked at Kyle, not with hate, not even disappointment, with sadness. "I came here to work, to stay invisible. I sweep because it gives me peace. But today I saw arrogance, not strength. I had to show you, martial arts is not about ego." Kyle's eyes welled up, not from pain, but from shame. And then came the words no one expected. Will you teach me?" The black janitor, who had been mocked just hours ago, was now being asked to teach the very dojo that ignored him. Elijah looked around, at the students, at the faded trophies, at the floor he cleaned every day, and then he whispered, "Only if you are ready to unlearn everything you thought made you strong." 3 weeks passed. The dojo looked the same, but everything inside it had changed. Where Kyle once strutted with arrogance, he now showed up early, warmed up quietly, and bowed deeply before every class. He had bruises now, not from fights, but from humility. Because every evening, after the regular class ended, he trained under Elijah. No crowds, no cameras, just the two of them. One young man learning the spirit of martial arts from a man the world had tried to forget. One night, after sparring, Kyle collapsed on the mat exhausted. He looked up at Elijah and asked, "Why did you stop teaching? You could have been world famous." Elijah was silent for a moment. Then he sat beside him and answered softly, "Because fame never mattered to me. I stood up against injustice when I was told to stay silent. They erased my name, so I became a ghost. But I never stopped being a teacher, even if no one called me one." Kyle's eyes filled with tears, not just for Elijah, but for all the elders, janitors, and quiet warriors he had walked past without seeing. Just then, the dojo doors opened. Sensei Ito stood there, surrounded by students and a few camera crews. Tonight was special, a ceremony. Elijah stepped forward, confused. But Sensei Ito held out a scroll. "For your years of service and your legacy of honor, we welcome you back as Master Elijah Johnson, founding instructor of the Shadow Crane discipline." The students all bowed. Even the parents stood up. Some cried. And when Elijah turned, he saw his daughter in her wheelchair, clapping through tears. Next to her, Kyle stood, and without hesitation, he helped her onto the mat. Elijah's hands trembled as he helped her into position. She grinned. "You said one day I would walk again, but today I just want to fight like you." The crowd burst into tears. Elijah took a deep breath, then bowed to his daughter. They began a slow kata together, father and daughter, a dance of resilience, of healing, of grace. Kyle placed a photo on the wall. It was Elijah in his youth, next to a new plaque that read, "True strength is silent, but it changes everything." Outside, the news crews rolled. The janitor had become the master. But more than that, he had taught a broken room how to see again. As they left that night, a young boy whispered to his mom, "I want to be like the janitor one day." The mom smiled. "Then you already understand what a true warrior looks like."